Welcome to Up All Night DIY, all of you night owls. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Tonight I, along with Indiana Jones and Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, are hosting the I Can't Sleep collab. We've gathered some of our creative insomniac friends to join us while we craft our way into the wee hours. Nighttime is when inspiration hits and when I'm at my drafting board tinkering with ideas. I have a couple prototypes to work on. Let's get into it. So the first DIY is a quick paper craft. I found this really cool line drawing of my city skyline that I really like. So I printed it on cardstock, and all I'm going to do is cut along the top of the buildings. I'll get rid of some of this excess paper first. And I'm going to grab my small pair of scissors, and I'm going to get as close to the lines of the buildings as I can. I'm just cutting away the top section so that I'm exposing, the outline of the skyline. I'll spare you guys watching me do all that. Okay, so once it's trimmed, I'm inking it with my Tim Holtz Vintage Photograph Distressing ink and then some black ink, because that's how I roll. I always have a wee nod to the city life tucked into my decor. While lots of people are all about suburban and country living, I thrive on the pulse of the city. Just going to hit all those edges until I'm happy, and going to hit them with the black ink too. All that's left to do is bring the ends together and run a line of hot glue along the edge. I'm making sure that it's even at the bottom there and level. Okay, adding the glue. Good stuff. I'll place a battery-operated candle in the center for a nice warm glow. Or fairy lights would work too, for this easy paper lantern. I'm digging the flicker of the candle. Here it is with fairy lights. I think I prefer the warmer look of the candle. What do you think? The fairy lights are definitely brighter, so I guess it depends on personal preference. Here it is with the candle again. The candle, right? Candle looks better. I was thinking you could do this like for Christmas with the Christmas village. Or even like a floral border would be really cool. Lots of ideas. I just love my city skyline, especially at night. I have another lantern. I was so inspired by the first that now I'm on a wee bit of a jag. Okay, let's get into it. We had this hardware cloth taking up space in the basement, so I cut a small piece off. It has these spiky edges, so you want to be careful handling it because it is very pokey. You can cut the spikes off. I'm just bending them down because I didn't want those little wee bits of metal flying around. They bend really easily with craft pliers. Yeah, so I'll bend all of them down. Now I'm going to roll it up in a cylinder. I'll just bring the ends just past each other to form the tube cylinder thingy, and I'm going to clamp it into place. I just want to try to get the ends flush with each other. Know what I mean? I'm using these tiny little zip ties to hold the ends together. I'm going to push them through the wee holes so that they'll close on the inside of the cylinder. And I add one at each end and then one in the middle for good measure. And I'm going to cut off the excess. You never know what you're going to find just taking up space in your basement. I saw this and I really liked the texture of it, so had to do something with it. I'm liking it so far. Here's where we get messy. I took a scrap of tissue paper, stamped it with clock faces, moons, and the words Nighty Night and Bedtime. And I'm going to Mod Podge it onto the hardware cloth. I'll start in the center of the tissue paper and lay that on top of the cylinder. I'm doing it this way so that I can make sure that the paper overlaps in the back where the ties are. And I'm just going to smooth it a wee bit with my hands. See that? Messy. I'm adding the Mod Podge to the rest of the one side, and then I'll wrap that around before doing the other side. I did have to be gentle because I didn't want to rip that paper. It's well slathered on there, so now I'm just going to wrap it around the wire. Again, just doing my best to smooth it out with my hands. Now we'll do the other side. And I overlap the ends on the back there. And we'll add some Mod Podge on top, make sure it's well stuck. And I'm going to clip the overhang and tuck it inside to cover the rim. And I'll just trim anything that might be too long, because I don't want that to show through from the inside. You feel me? See, these bits here are just a little too long, so I'm going to trim them down. And we'll finish tucking, and then I'm going to add a little Mod Podge on them to make sure that they stay stuck down. I'm going to use some Harlequin scrapbook paper that I've cut down to trim the top and bottom because I thought it needed, something else there. So now I'm going to run some Mod Podge along the top edge too. I'm going to try to line that trim up right along the top edge as best I can. Yeah, I'm liking that. That's definitely better than it was. Add in a top coat to make sure it stays stuck to that tissue paper. I really enjoy these late nights when inspiration hits and I have some weird material to work with, like this hardware cloth. I mean, why is it even called cloth? It's wire. I'm liking this so far. I like the concept. Yeah, I can definitely see me making various other things from this hardware cloth. I think we still have a pretty good amount in the basement, so I'll be pulling that out and seeing what else I can do with it. Okay, we'll get the bottom trim on, and we're good to go. I think the other thing that I really like about the hardware cloth is it's got like that industrial element to it, and I love anything industrial. It's just one of my quirks. Right, we'll give that a top coat. Yep, I'm feeling it. Almost there. I decided that it needed something else, so I trimmed out the top with black cording, but in the end, it wasn't doing it for me. So I pulled it off and I replaced it with black satin ribbon. You don't get to see that though. You just get to see me trim it in the cording. I think the satin ribbon looks better, but honestly, I really think it needs something else, but I just couldn't find anything around the house. So when I figure it out, I'll replace it or make a new one, which is really what I'll probably do. Yeah, so I finished this up top and bottom. And just like with the paper lantern, I pop in some fairy lights, and I tried it with the battery operated candle, and once again, the candle won. Now, obviously this could be neater, but I really love the concept of this. I'm definitely going to make more that will be much tidier than this one, but what a sweet wee night light. Yeah, I'm totally digging it. I hope you like it too. Wouldn't be a late night crafting sesh without a moon, right? I used my hot wire to cut a crescent moon shape from a Dollar Tree Styrofoam Disc. Gotta tell ya, I love this tool. Whatever I paid for it a million years ago was well worth it. It slices right through the styrofoam without any of the, little bits that fall off that have static electricity and you can't vacuum them up and they're stuck to your shirt and they're a nightmare. This thing is great. It melts the area where you're cutting so you don't get any of that mess. It pops right out. It's awesome. I'm going to cover the moon in Model Magic. I flattened it enough to cover the front surface. I traced around the moon with an X-Acto knife, and then I pulled away the excess. I laid the clay onto the moon and I pressed it into the foam, just using my fingers. And I just keep working it until it's really stuck on there. I use small pieces of the remainder of the clay to cover the rest of the surface, just working it with my fingers. This worked really well. I only needed the front to be smooth. The back didn't matter so much, so patching it together was fine. To make his cheek, I rolled a ball of clay, cut it in half, and I popped it onto the front of the moon. You know, where his cheek would go. One of the things that I really like about Model Magic is it really sticks well to itself, but it's also very easy to reposition, so you gotta love that. I rolled a smaller ball for his eye, and I popped that into place. I'm cutting a sleepy eyelid for him from flattened clay. I'm going to place that so that about half of his eye is peeking out. Of course he's going to need an eyebrow, so I rolled a thin clay snake for his eyebrow. I'll just place it right there, arching it a wee bit. We'll use another piece of thin snake there to give him a lash line. Just going to pinch off what I don't need. Then I'll press it in a bit, make sure it's in there well. And I'll turn up the end of his eyelash, whip it up there. The snake is a little thicker for his mouth, and I curled the end to give it a little extra character. And I'll just press that into place. He's going to get some craters by pressing dowels into the clay. You know, just here and there, making an impression in the clay. I'm going to make a cloud stand for him. Nothing too technical here, just wadding up some clay that will cradle around him. I add a piece to the back too for stability. I use a paintbrush handle to make some indentations in the cloud, give it a fluffy effect. I let him dry overnight. Now I'll give him a solid coat of black acrylic paint. I just wanted him to have like a dusty appearance, so I'm dry brushing him with Americana bleached sand. And I'm doing this everywhere. The cloud and all. Everything will be lightly dusted. However, I do think I was a little heavy-handed. I may go back, dry brush some black onto him, just to give him more of that dusty appearance. Because as you'll see in the final shot, he is a little more solid than I originally intended. I do think he's more solid looking in the photograph than he is in person, but he could still use a dusting of black. Here's a final look at my Cant sleep projects. As I mentioned, late at night is when inspiration hits, and I play with different materials that maybe I wouldn't normally, and try to work out some fun new things to make. Thanks to Annie and Dawn for co-hosting with me. This late night sesh was actually Dawn's brilliant idea. I want to thank all of my other Insomniac creative buddies for playing along at this pajama party, and thanks to you guys for joining us. I've linked both Annie and Dawn's channels, as well as the playlist in the description box. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.